recently finished the Platinum Trophy for V Rising, and I wanted to share my overall thoughts on the game, my experience working toward the Platinum, as well as some tips for a couple of the trophies that I had left toward the end of the game. V Rising is an isometric survival action RPG. I was unsure if I would like this kind of game, given that I had friends on PC who seemed to agree that it was more fun in co-op, but I completed my playthrough solo on brutal difficulty, and I would definitely recommend this to anyone who is on the fence. Building your castle is one of the first crucial steps, as it will allow you to drop your haul off each time you fill your inventory, protect yourself from the sun, and later on provides a means of fast travel to different waypoints around the map. There are many places you can build throughout the map, but I would recommend building your first castle near a waypoint to make early travel a bit easier. Later on, you'll have the ability to relocate or even build additional castles from scratch. My first castle was a bit of a mess. In most survival games, I group all of my crafting stations together. I have a room for all my storage, a separate room for my gear and healing and buffing items. But in V Rising, you will get bonuses to your crafting speed and lower resource costs if you put things in separate rooms with the correct flooring. So once I defeated enough bosses to make use of those mechanics, I decided to rebuild my castle in a new location with the separate rooms in mind. The combat is really enjoyable. It has a ton of variety to suit different playstyles, and after playing around with a few of the melee options, I ultimately landed on range weapons for my run, and of the range weapons, I think I like the longbow the best, so I stuck with that most of the time. On to the Platinum review. My playthrough clocked in at right about 30 hours, but I'd imagine you could easily cut that in half if you played on a lower difficulty or had some friends join you. There are a ton of customization options when you create your server, allowing you to tailor the different aspects of the game to your preferences. I started out with vanilla settings, but eventually I ended up cranking up like resource gathering, stack sizes, crafting speed, lowered the durability loss on my gear, crafting material requirements can be lowered, and you can even increase your own health and damage. Most of the trophies are earned just by playing through the game and following the objectives that appear in the top left corner of the screen, although there were a couple that weren't covered by the in-game objectives, so I'm going to offer some tips for those. First up, it's a bronze trophy called It's a Tight Squeeze. It says, use rat form to traverse through a small hole. Initially, I thought this would be a mechanic of rat form used to traverse the map in some way, but after I looked around for quite some time, I found a specific spot where the trophy popped for me. From this location on the map, you can enter into the cave, and then if you just follow along the route to the back, eventually you'll come across a little group of rats here. And then just behind those rats, you can hop into your rat form and crawl through the hole, and then the trophy will pop for you. Next trophy is called Oh No, and it says Eat the Wrong Mushroom. It's not a very difficult trophy by any means, but finding the correct mushrooms took me some time, so I figured I would show you where I found them so that you can be sure to pick them up during your playthrough. Finally, the following two trophies can be done together. A perfect test subject, it says feed a prisoner with irradiant gruel and have them reach 100% blood quality as a result, and an eye for quality, successfully charm a human that has 100% blood quality. You can definitely find somebody out in the world with 100% blood quality. You just would have to hop on your horse, put on your Witcher senses, and run around to different areas. But personally, after I found one of those, and then it was killed right after I subdued it, I decided to try and take an easier route. After you've completed the objectives for creating your own prison and tapping a human for blood, you can start working on these trophies. Basically, the first step is to find a human of the blood type that you want. Anywhere 90 plus is probably good enough, the higher the better. I happened to find a group of mid-90s that had a warrior, a worker, and a rogue while I was running around Brighthaven. So after subduing and sending them home with the dust callers, I was ready to begin. Craft a few irradiated gruels, and those are used to increase a prisoner's blood percentage by 1 or 2% per feeding. But there's also a 35% chance that you'll turn them into a hostile mutant, so craft enough to get them to 100% from where they're currently at, and then grab any of the fish that you've acquired and head to your prison. Once you get in front of your prisoner, save your game, and then load back in. Try feeding 1 irradiated gruel. If it works, then you'll see an increase in their blood percent and they'll still be human. Whenever this happens, save the game and reload again. If the feeding fails, they'll instantly turn into a mutant, so quickly close out of the game without saving, and then when you load back in, you'll be back to where you had saved before. You can try again, but this time, instead of going straight to the irradiated gruel, feed them 1 fish first, and then try the gruel again. If it works, same thing, save the game and reload. If it doesn't, then quickly close out, reload, and this time try feeding 2 fish, and then feed the gruel. Eventually it will work. It's kind of RNG based, and the RNG is like locked each time you try it, so you can't like reload and feed the gruel, it didn't work, reload, feed the gruel, and maybe it might work. I tested that about 5 times, and every single time they turned into a mutant, but after feeding 1 or 2 fish, then the gruel would work again. After you get your prisoner up to 100% blood quality, you'll get the perfect test subject trophy, and now you can activate your dominate human form and interact with the prison cell to subdue them from the prison cell. Once subdued, you'll get an eye for quality, and then you can also use that to move prisoners between cells. And provided you keep feeding them and keep their misery down low enough, you can keep tapping them for that 100% blood. And you're eventually going to need that for the final boss. Speaking of the final boss, the last 2 trophies for me were defeating the final boss and defeating all V-Bloods, so those unlocked at the same time. Most of the bosses up to this point I was able to take on pretty haphazardly, requiring maybe 1 or 2 attempts, but the final boss really upped the ante, and I had to spend quite a bit of time farming up materials to get all my passives unlocked, upgrade my weapon, and try out some different skills before I ultimately was able to take him down. That's all I have for this video. I hope your platinum journey is as enjoyable as mine was, and I will leave you with my scuffed attempt at the final boss. Endgame spoilers ahead.
You have come to me, bearing the power of my blood. Bold, but naive. The powers you bear belong to me. Surrender them or face your destiny. There is no escape from your fate. In my veins flows the essence of true happiness. Fleeing will not save you. Within the mist unseen. Save you. Feel the heartbeat of your tomb. You are a shadow, an imitation. This is what it means to be king. Endless hatred. I am the darkness that devours. too late to... This is the end! Feel the bloodstorm's tide! Witness the might of the true immortal king! Run, little whelpling. No! Impossible! You think you can defeat me? I am inevitable! Death will not hold me forever. Impossible! How can my own powers betray me? I am the master of blood and shadows! Witness the might of the true immortal king! Defeated by my own power. There could be no other way. Taste of knowledge.